The first vet inspection before dressage is usually uneventful, almost a formality, to check that the horse is sound before the competition. But for one former world champion, it brought disaster. Bruce Davidson's horse, Dr. Peaches, was eliminated. It was a severe shock to the American team and an inevitably controversial decision so early in the competition.
The jury that examines him in the vet examination are the dressage judges. So if they felt, while watching him do his entire dressage test, that he was not comfortable in any way, they still have the power at that point to dismiss him.
Bruce is a horseman, and he do know that his horse was not fit. He do know it, and he try to show us in front of us. It's set a mind to try to, but we're objective and we have to say no.
He goes home just like the rest of us, and we'll march on and go to our next competition and try to put things right.
At a World Championships, riders compete both as individuals and as part of a team. When walking the course, the younger British competitors were able to plan their approach to each fence with a more experienced rider like Ian Stark.
Yeah, but I think, you know, if you can keep by the red flag on the right coming into the first part, then you're going to be over this parallel and landed and thinking about turning before you've actually got set up to jump the middle.
Yeah, and
two
you have
parallels.
actually got about 3 strides before we need to turn.
Well, you'll actually pull up quite easily because they'll just prop a little bit and you can set up and hold them and angle this.
Yeah.
You just have to watch that after you've jumped this, you don't turn too quickly, especially if there's been any rain, because you could just slip on the turn and you might just not be outside the penalty zone.
Jump down the side, please. Go down on the side. Yeah, that's okay. No worries.
I personally have to walk it 4 times, otherwise I'm not happy. When you set off through the box, the starting box, you have to be absolutely 100% certain where you're going and be totally committed.
I normally walk the course 4 times, study each fence in great detail, study all the alternatives, the striding, the approaches. Hopefully at the end of the 3rd walk, you've pretty well made up your mind how you're going to ride the course, where you're going to jump each fence, and you virtually walk it as you would ride it.
We'll have to wait till
well, it was cheap anyway.
Oh, well,
At this stage, the cross-country course is still an unknown quantity, and course designer Neil Ayers attempts to explain it to the press.
Now, the short route we'll talk about first. The short route is the right-hand route. They jump over 9A. It's 1 stride to where baby carriage is, into the water, and then in the water, a bounce to element C. And the bounce is set at 13 feet at one end and 18 feet at the other. So the rider has the choice of taking anything from a 13 to an 18-foot bounce. That way, they can't tell me that I put the wrong distance in. I can just tell them they didn't ride it in the right place, you see?
Three strides. Perfect. Perfect.
The water jump is already causing concern, though the riders may joke about it.
No. Yeah.
I suppose the water always frightens everyone, doesn't it? No one wants to go for a swim particularly. Yeah, it's a sport, you know, we take it seriously, but everyone has to have their fun. If we were too intense walking the course, we'd probably all get too uptight about the whole thing. But, I mean, we take it seriously, there's no doubt about it.
The rain on the 2nd day is yet another distraction in an already intimidating arena.
From Great Britain, Virginia Ling and Priceless. She broke an arm in 77, in 23 places, and seriously enough to consider amputation. Mark Todd and Woolrest Charisma. Not a particularly big horse, as you can see, but one who doesn't accentuate his riders 6 feet 4 inches. Mark proved his mount by winning 5 major competitions in New Zealand before selling most of his cattle and basing himself and charisma in England. Torrance, Flashman and Finvara. As a child, Torrance hunted and showed ponies. After finishing her studies in the University of Denver, she became a fashion model, then a fragrance consultant in New York.
Finvara's performance brings her into the lead after the dressage.
I've been asked whether I find being small a disadvantage, since I have to carry lead in any of the major competitions. I don't consider myself small, first of all. I gain a pound, I think I'm enormous. I work with horses, and when they get too big, then I realize I'm quite small. And then I try to find another way to deal with them without using brute strength. And there's no way any human being can use brute strength on the horse. I don't care how big you are. There is an opinion that courses are getting very tough. I walked badminton last year 6 times, and I tried to find a way to get over the fences without being really ill. And I truly thought that Frank Weldon was absolutely out of his mind. There was so much fear involved that I rode like the hounds of hell were after me. But I will always ride a Weldon course knowing that it's been done, even though it looks absolutely impossible, knowing that it's been done the fairest way possible. There are some other courses that I do not have that confidence in.
Well, I think the weather will make a tremendous difference. If the sun comes out and dries things off, you'll see a lot more horses finishing the course. If it rains, there'll be horses slipping and sliding. There are bound to be. The galloping surface is clay, a lot of it. When it rains, is just plain greasy. I used to compete, but then I broke my neck, and I'm all wired together. That's why I moved this way a bit. And when I was no longer able to compete, I became interested in course design and the course design end of the sport.
The first riders are already on the cross-country course, while Leng and then Todd start the steeplechase.
Charisma is just a really nice character. He knows he's a star. He knows he's #1 in the yard. He's not at all nasty. There's not a nasty bone in his body.
After 3,000 meters at full gallop, Phase C, the roads and tracks, demands a steady trot to an exact timing. At the end of Phase C is the start and finish line of the cross-country course. A 10-minute rest and another vet inspection to check that the horse can take the rigors of the ride ahead.
Sans incident pour l'obstacle numéro 2.
This is the last chance for riders to compare notes, learn how the course is riding, and make their choices between quick routes and the slower, safer options available at most of the obstacles. One fence which is claiming victims whichever route they ride is the water.
horse now is Virginia Lang and Priceless. And we're coming to our next three people, actually, who are starting out are very interesting because, and what a magnificent recovery from Ginny. Look, he's having a little pig root, and he says, gosh, I've been waiting for this all day.
Each rider sending him off on that cross country is I find, a nerve-wracking experience. And until they're back again, you're on tenterhooks.
All of our crew were quite alarmed with what was happening on the cross-country course. We had heard the footing was almost intolerable. The rains that had come down the day before were making the very hard-going slick, a sort of ice slick, as if you were in a skating rink on the side of a hill. And I was quite worried. I mean, I think it was probably the most worried I'd ever been on any course.
And of course, a constant medal winner. Made all sorts of trouble, but he did well with him.
I've had quite a few falls. I've broken both ankles, cracked ribs, bruised lungs, broken jaw, broken arm. It is a high-risk sport for horses and riders.
When we went out of the box on Phase D, on the cross-country, he seemed very normal. He was very good. I was quite worried. I think all of us were worried because the footing had deteriorated quite a bit from the rains on the hard ground. People were falling, horses were falling. But he galloped boldly and with his great zest all the way up to the splash. As a team, we had already lost one of our members, and I think it was essential to get around. If I'd been an individual, I would have pulled him up immediately. But I galloped him around, I cantered him around over galloping fences, and bless his heart, he jumped everything absolutely immaculately. But he just didn't have any speed. There's the agony of every stride saying, do I pull him up? Do I keep going? And about halfway up the famous Gawler Hill, I saw blood coming back and hitting me on my breeches, and I knew that I was in trouble. I saw blood coming out of one nostril, and I thought, what do I do now?
That's priceless. There goes the tail. And what is she, 35? I think she's only 43 seconds. Just have a check. It's only 43 seconds. That, I think, is the closest.
Fantastic. I wanted to do the banks, but I thought better not. Here we go. Here comes Charisma into the lead.
No, he's had a fall. He fell in the water.
And what about Flash?
As I said, the main problem was the water, and it just seems like you're either lucky or unlucky there.
Do you think it's worthwhile your coming here?
Well, you got to come here to compete, haven't you? You've got to be in to win, so... Quick fight.
Thanks. How was it, Charlie? Did somebody pick up the stick? The stick I threw to you?
Yeah.
Can you run down and check? The more I think about it, the more I realize he must have really cracked his head because he jumped the double brush badly after it.
Right.
It really was a conscious thing that I kept him going, but it weighs on me a lot, mentally and emotionally, because this horse is a good friend.
Finvara is withdrawn, and the American team is out of the event. Ginny Lang, after adding only a few time penalties to her score, has moved into second place.
Number 36, Priceless, is passed.
In the lead is Tinks Pottinger of New Zealand, the only rider to complete the course within the time allowed. To most of those watching, it is clear that something is wrong with her horse Volunteer.
Volunteer is eliminated.
When a horse is really dead lame, you can't allow him to go because he can be going worse and worse. And naturally, he has now to be looked by the vet to make him better. But anyway, when you have a dead horse who is dead, lambing dead, you can't let him go.
Months, years of preparation can come to nothing in one unlucky moment. The sport of eventing is built upon the dedication required to get a horse to a peak of fitness which will enable him to stay sound to the end of a major three-day competition. For the riders, this is the real challenge of the sport. On the final day of show jumping, even the fittest horse will be feeling the strain of the previous day. Though Tinks is out of the running, the New Zealanders are still in a strong position as a team. The scores from the dressage and the cross-country have been added together, and finally, everyone knows what is at stake.
I think I get quite nervous inwardly because so much is gained or indeed lost in the show jumping phase. 5 penalties is very expensive. I mean, it used to be 10, but now, thank goodness, it's 5. But you can so very often be, say, lying third, equal with somebody else, and you've got one fence which will move you down to 10th place if you have a fence down. So it really, I find the show jumping the most nerve-wracking part of the whole competition.
The final fence, and if Ginny and Priceless go clear, the World Championship will be theirs.